air brakes inspection. I want to make sure that our truck is level, and I want to put my chocks in. Put my chocks right here. I want to set my chocks in place because as I'm going through my procedure, I'm doing my air brakes inspection. I don't want my truck to roll around or any accidents happening while I'm performing my procedure. So we just do that as a safety precaution before we go get in the cab and do the rest of our procedures. Hello guys, I'm gonna be doing a air brakes inspection on an International Transstar. I've already bled my system down to 0. We're gonna be starting to do this test from 0, all of our banks, and we're gonna check for our alarms, see if our low-level alarms. We're gonna check and see when our low-level alarm cuts off, and we're gonna check to see how the system's operating, if it's building up pressure in the aggregate time, and if our governor is cut off in the aggregate time. So we're gonna get started with that right now. Right now, my truck's chocked. We're in the bay. We've met all our criteria for this procedure, and we're gonna start the procedure. Okay, we're gonna start our truck up right now. Our truck started. Our truck's gonna go through our system checks, and that was our low-level alarm already. Okay, that's our low-level alarm, a low pressure warning light on our dash. It should go off between 60 and 75 PSI. So we're gonna wait and see what I let our pressure build up on a fast idle. Our pressure's building up. Now when our low-level alarm cuts off, we're gonna wait to see that our pressure builds up between 85 and 100 PSI within 40 seconds. See, we're a little low on fuel too. That's okay, we got enough to do our job. Do this inspection. Okay, we just met 60. Each one of our lines there are 15 PSI. So right around 70, we got our alarm going off. Now we're at 75, so now our next test is we gotta go between 85 and 100 PSI within 40 seconds. So we're about 80 PSI now. So roughly at 100 PSI, close to 100 PSI right now. And it's within the 40-second range. So we've passed that part of the test. Now we're waiting for our governor to cut off. Our governor should cut off approximately 125 to 135 PSI. When the governor goes to cut off, you'll hear the psst, the relief valve relieving itself. indicating that the governor is no longer charging the system. That was the little chuff that you heard, the psh, relief of that. So we know our governor's turned off. Now our governor should cut back in within 30 PSI of the 125, 135 PSI range. So within 30 PSI of this, our governor should cut back in. So I'm gonna breathe off a little pressure here. Yep, and our governor's cut back in and starting to build up pressure again. So that system's running really good. We're gonna run it back up to 120 until the governor cuts out again, and then we're gonna do our static test. So we checked our alarms, we checked our governor cut in and our governor cut out. Our governor cut in high and low, and everything's test set. All we're waiting for right now is to build our pressure back up so that we can do a static test and test our system and make sure our system's holding. Okay, our governor just cut back off. We're gonna wait a minute and we're gonna turn our truck off, wait a minute, let our pressure rest. Our truck's cut off. We're gonna let a minute sit, and we're gonna let idle for, not idle, correction. We're gonna sit for a minute and let the air pressure stabilize. And after a minute we sit, let it stabilize, then we're gonna start a 2-minute timer. And the 2-minute timer is going to let us see where our pressure's at. So here we are, letting it stabilize. Okay guys, we've let it stabilize for a minute and we've waited 2 minutes. There's no deflection in our air system. So we indicate that if we'd have lost, like, the maximum is 4 PSI, but we didn't lose any PSI. So we're gonna say that the system is holding. There's no leaks on the alternator system. And now we're gonna go on to further inspecting the rest of our truck. We'll see you back again. Okay guys, we're here still doing our inspection on our air brakes test. Right now we're going to do the valve chuff test to check the pressure modulator valves. Here is going to be a series of chuffs. 7 chuffs going to come about. The steer axle right, the steer axle left, the drive axle right, the drive axle left, and additional axles, which we have on this truck. This is a International TransUnion, and then we're going to check the traction control valve also as well. We're going to start the truck and let's see for the chuffs. Okay guys, we're back. We're about to do our chuff test. We see the pressure that we have on our gauge is between 90 and 120, roughly 105 psi. We're going to turn our key on and hold our brake pedal while parking brake is disengaged. We're going to go ahead on and disengage our parking brake. So our parking brake is disengaged, and we're going to do this to see if all of our pressure modulating valves and our traction control valves are activating. We're going to listen for audible chuff as we turn the key on and press on the brakes. 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, there we go. We heard all of our chuffs in our system. System check set. Put our system back to normal operation and continue our air brakes inspection. Okay guys, we're going to do the next part of our test, which is going to be the service brake air system check. This part of the test would be when we would check to see, if there's any leakage in our service brakes, or we would check to see if our brake chambers and our slack adjusters and all the other things were in their proper 90 degrees on our angles from our chambers, and we were just to make sure to see that our push rods and everything were in the right position, 90 degrees. But on this truck, this is International TransUnion. International TranStar. So, and we have all around here all disc brakes. So we won't be in this test checking to see the angle of our push rods on the truck. Okay, so let's get into the test. We're gonna, when we get into the test, we're going to set the truck up first, and then we're going to apply the brakes. Okay, the first part of this test says that we need to have our test at 80 or 90 operating PSI. A brake application, and we're going to turn our engine on to see where our air pressure is at. And we're roughly at 120. We'll get it closer down, just so we're following procedure. Just so that we're following the procedure. While we're bleeding this down, we're gonna go ahead on and take off our parking brakes, because we can't have our parking brakes applied on this, and our truck is chopped while we're doing this. Now our pressure is at 90, and we're gonna press our brakes and hold our brakes for a stabilizing minute, and then we're gonna allow it to sit for 2 more minutes while we do the test. The first minute is only just so that the air tank can stabilize. Now in this test, we're allowed 4 psi of drop on our gauges because of the truck. Now if we had a trailer, that would be an additional 2 psi, so it would be 6 psi if we had one trailer, and an additional 2 if we had another trailer, so it would be an additional 8 psi we could lose on our gauge. Right now while we're watching our gauge and to see if we are hooked to trailers, but this is just the tractor, so we're only gonna go with the 4 psi. Now if we was watching our brake chambers and our push rods for the travel, the 90 degrees, and it would depends on what kind of brake chamber we had too, how much length that it would be that we would have, so we would make those adjustments for that. But in this position, like I said earlier, this is disc brakes, so we're not checking the push rods and the degrees, and we don't have to worry about what size the chamber are for this. So we're gonna let this sit and come back, and we'll get to see if our gauge has changed. Okay guys, we came back. We let it stabilize for a minute. We let it set for another 2 minutes. And there's only like 2 PSI deflection in our gauge. We're gonna say that's okay and continue on with our air brakes inspection. Okay guys, these are parts that we need to check while we're doing our inspection for leaks. All these are leak paths right here, and these hoses and our control valves. We check around in our chambers. All these we're checking for leaks. We go around the truck. We check all our connections in our tanks. Our secondary tank. Check for leaks. We spray all of this down with a soap and water solution. Here's some more. We check all of our connections, our dryer and our governor. We check that and make sure all that's okay as well. We check out all the air systems, our bags, all the little primary systems, leveling control valves. As we go through, this is the air valves if we had a trailer, but our trailer's not hooked. We don't have a trailer hooked up. We go to each individual tire and chamber and check our connections on here. Check our other connections. We'll check our airbags, make sure our airbags are not leaking. We spray them down on the top and the bottoms. On the top and the bottoms of our airbags. Or on top of our airbags, we check all our control valves. We check them. Come back on this side and we check this side here. Make sure there's no leaks nowhere when we check this. Air systems here. Check that. I mean, since we're right here, I'm just checking all the rest of our air fitting connections as well. Yeah, we make sure that we check all of those valves around our air system that's around our truck manually as we spray them down with soap and water out of a spray bottle. Okay guys, we're moving on. We're gonna move on and continue with our air brakes test. Okay guys, we are in another test. We'll drain our primary reservoir and plan to drop to check our test, to check one-way check valves to see if our pressure is gonna bleed back from our secondary tank to our primary tank. It's been like 2 minutes and there's no leakage from the secondary tank to the primary tank. We're gonna go outside of the truck and see if our brake applications happen in the rear of the truck to make sure that the crossover valve is still working. Okay guys. Okay, we drained the reservoir down and our primary reservoir down. We're gonna make an application on our rear brakes to see if our rear brakes apply. We have someone in the cab pressing our brakes. Okay, our brakes are working in the rear. We're gonna continue to go on to our next test. Okay, we're building our pressure back up so that we can drain our secondary tank and we can perform our check valve test on the secondary side. Okay guys, we've bled the system down, the secondary tank down to 0 PSI. We've sat and waited 2 minutes to make sure that there would be no cross from the secondary tank to the primary tank, and the pressure is stabilized and it has not been no change in pressure from the primary to the secondary. Now we're going to go outside in the truck and see if our brake application will apply the steer axle brakes. Okay guys, we're under the truck and we're applying the brakes for the Ford brakes, and yep, everything looks like it's working just fine under here. And so our system checks out set, and this is going to be how we're going to conclude our system test. Thanks. Okay guys, that's it for our brake inspection test and our air brakes inspection test, and we'll see you guys later.